Hi, it's Bijan here. I had the amazing opportunity to interview Dennis Relojo Howell. If you're interested in a super inspiring life journey from growing up literally in a slum in the Philippines to becoming a very successful online entrepreneur, psychologist, and even making his PhD right now, this is one of the most incredible life stories I ever heard. We talk about what mindset is necessary to become successful. We also talk about that life is messy sometimes. It's not always so shiny that like social media shows it to us. And that's powerful to share also these challenges and also failures in our life. We talk also about resilience. That's a topic close to Dennis' heart. Resilience is very important and the key to success. And we talk about strategies to develop more resilience. Overall, Dennis is an incredible example how you can be, on the one hand, very successful, but on the other hand, staying very, very humble and grounded. So I think we all can learn from this. If you're new to my channel, please make sure to subscribe, give me an early thumbs up. This helps my channel to grow. And let's go right into the interview. Hi, Dennis. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Bijan, to your YouTube channel, and hopefully your audience can get a bit of value on what I'm about to say. And again, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it that you take time here coming on the show. I will give our listeners and viewers a little introduction. So we joined today by Dennis Relojo Howell. I hope I pronounced your name right. He's the founder and managing director of PsychRec. It's one of the biggest blogs in the psychology space. He's also chief editor of PsychRec Journal of Psychology. He holds a master's degree in psychology. He's a social entrepreneur, author, speaker. He attended a lot of events all over the world where we spoke about psychological topics. He's a resilience researcher. He's also very deep in the topics blog psychology, digital mental health. He's incredibly blogging since 2004. It's really amazing. He found PsychRec, I think 2014, if it's right. And you also have been called the world's first blog psychologist, which yeah, sounds very impressive. So welcome to the show, Dennis.
Yes, thank you. And I'm quite impressed by the amount of research that you've done for this interview. So thank you so much. I'm quite humbled.
No, it's I'm really excited to meet you because it's so rare to meet people that are passionate in psychology, but also being at the same time in the online space and around blogging and media. So I think we share quite some interests here, and I'm very curious to pick your brain a little bit and to discuss certain topics. So yeah, thanks so much. Should we maybe start a little bit with your background story? Maybe you want to share a little bit about, I don't know, how was your childhood? How did you grow up?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to share the trajectory of my life. So I spent my formative years in a slum in the Philippines. So originally from the Philippines, but I live now here in Britain. I'm a naturalized British citizen. So growing up, I spent my childhood in a very humble environment. So there was no running water, there was no electricity, there was no toilet. I did not even know how it was to sleep in a bed until I was about, I think until I was about 15 or 16. But I've always been ambitious as a child. I told my parents that surely there's another world other than this place. I'm quite ambitious as a child. I told my parents I don't want to spend the rest of my life here. And so my parents told me that the best way to get out of this place is by going through university. And so that was the reason why I'm the first in the family to go to university. I don't really hate the place. I think that's a bit of a strong word. I don't hate the slum where I grew up, but I would say that it kind of fueled my drive. It fueled my ambition. Because if I did not spend my formative years in a slum in the Philippines, I don't think I would have the drive to go to university and to look for a job and have a better life. So I, in a way, I consider that place a paradise because it taught me a number of lessons, resilience being one, and also being having gratitude, appreciating the simple things in life. Because if you live in an environment where there's not even a running water, you're just thankful that you actually have a food in your table. Yeah, so that's the kind of place that I grew up. But when I share it, I don't want to convey a feeling of self-pity to people, because as a child, I did not really feel left out, shall we say, growing up in the slum. I know there was some things missing, like a bit of comfort in life, but I think, yeah, in a way, it shaped me who I am. So I'm still glad that I spent my childhood in a slum in the Philippines. So that's my childhood like.
Yeah, amazing. How did your parents made it happen to send you to university? And it must be yeah.
Yeah, actually, I work so I could go to university. So I work in a burger van in the evening, like those where you flip burgers.
Yeah.
So in the morning I was at university, and then in the evening I was working at the burger van. I was also a street vendor. I was also a street vendor. I was selling rugs in the street and selling, some stuff in the street so I could pay my way to university. I'm supposed to finish university in 4 years' time, but it took me 6 years because I come and go out of university because obviously I don't have money. So, and then I did 3 jobs basically, working at a burger van, and then working as working as a street vendor and working at a call center. So those were my 3 jobs, and also my parents also they supported me. Yeah, but we kind of share the tuition fees. That's how I managed to go to university.
Wow, that's amazing that you sound like you made it all by yourself from the ground on.
No, it was also partly because of my parents.
Yeah, but it's really impressive. How would you describe your personality as a child? Like,
they say that your personality is pretty much fixed, but pretty much stable. I kind of agree with that. I was an introvert as a child, and until now, I see myself as someone who's still introverted. And I remember keeping a journal as a child, and I still have that journal because I'm quite comfortable expressing myself in writing, and also I just rather keep things to myself. And until now, that's still who I am. That's still my core personality.
But would you say that you changed over time?
No, yeah, I'm introverted, but
I mean, you had been quite a lot exposed with your speaking gigs and stuff like this, and like.
Yeah, I am introverted, but I'm not shy. I have, I'm not really good with small talks. Like when you bring me to a party, I'm not good with small talks. But that doesn't mean that I'm shy, because I have quite a thick skin. And as a child, I don't say a lot, but I would describe myself as assertive as a child. Yeah, and until now I think I'm assertive, but I'm quiet.
Yeah.
So when I need to speak, I will speak, but I'm not very good with small talks and chit chats.
Okay. And how started your passion with psychology? When did you know that this is something which interests you?
I believe that my interest in psychology was sparked by my high school teacher. Because she also did psychology when she was at university. So she just keeps on talking about, psychology. She's our English teacher, but she did psychology at uni. And she just keeps on talking about the beauty of psychology, how it's how you can apply the different theories of psychology in real life. And so that kind of sparked my interest in psychology. But initially, when I applied at uni, I was thinking of doing something like journalism, like a writing related degree. But I changed my mind and I eventually just took a psychology degree. And when I was at uni, I think the first 2 years of doing psychology at uni, I was not interested about psychology. I was just doing it because I want to have a university degree. I want to have qualification. But eventually, on my third, fourth year, I learned to love psychology because I can see that I could work in different fields. I could work as a researcher. I could work at HR. So, and I see that there's so many applications of psychology. So yeah, and I think that's one of the beauty of psychology. So that's why I really like it.
Okay, so when I hear it right, your passion with writing came first, and then came psychology afterwards, because you said
yes, that's right. Yeah,
cool.
Which actually led me to develop my interest in blogging. Like what you've mentioned during the intro, it was in about 2014 that I launched PsychReg. But before that, I've been blogging practically since WordPress emerged. Because I just love expressing myself in writing, and then I realized that I could actually monetize content. I could monetize blog, and so I developed PsychReg, and eventually that became my full-time job. But blogging as a passion, I think it's just nice to create content and then you became part of a community. Because when you launch your blog, you're not just writing and creating content, but you also meet other people who have similar interests. And I think that's how you and me, Bijan, we have our paths have crossed because we have a similar interest. And I think that's the beauty of blogging, creating contents. You become part of a wider blogging community.
Yeah, I would love to share this story. So I was researching actually for my blog to find some other blogs in the psychology niche to get backlinks from, and then I found your site. And so sometimes websites don't have like about information or team. So on your page, I found your team, I found you, and then I found the link to your website, and I looked into it. And first, so I immediately saw that you're very, very nice guy, and the thing which caught my most attention was that you had like so you, of course, you listed all the things you did, but you also had a list of failures on your site, which reminded me of myself, because I did something similar in one of my CVs. And I always, I mean, there's so many people out there, they're pretending everything is perfect and they have everything. And I found it deeply humble and courageous as well to talk about failures. So not many people are that strong to show this publicly and to open this. So this deeply resonated with me. So I had to reach out to you. That was really, really nice. How did you find this strength? So where came the idea from, and how did you end up sharing this stuff?
Oh, the CV of failures. It was not my idea. So I forgot the name, the last name of the guy, but his first name is Johannes. I think is German American. But I just saw it on Twitter, and people were listing their CV of failures, and I think that's important because I'm doing my PhD now, and although I don't have any plans of being an academic, one thing I noticed about being in academia is that you tend to highlight your successes, which is of course expected, and it's also important. But it's a very hyper competitive community. Like you want to show to people that you publish an article or that you're doing so and so and you're part of an organization, but we don't really see the process. We tend to forget the journey of how someone has managed to achieve what they have achieved. And so I'd like to kind of make my failures more visible, because it's more human. We live in social media now that we just tend to post everything that is good, beautiful, but life is not like that. Life is messy, like even when doing this interview, that it probably would end up looks really sassy on YouTube, but people don't realize that there's a lot of work, because I'm also doing the same thing as you, Bichan. I have a 45-minute interview, and that's what people see on YouTube, but it's actually 3 hours of preparation, because I have to prepare the interview, and before that I have to fix my setting, my background, my lights, and then I have a complete setup, and that's what people don't realize. And so I just want to make people realize that there's actually a lot of work involved, no matter which industry you are, be it in academia or content creation, and I think we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's what I like as well, this counterintuitive approach, as like a little bit a difference to social media where just the perfect sides are shown, because I know all successful people, they all failed a lot, and people are often too much afraid of failure, and because they fear it just, and that's really encouraging also for others to see you showing your failures. That's really amazing, because like you say, that's more like real, and reminds people that it's normal part of life. And especially if you're ambitious and you want to be successful, you have to fail a lot to get where you want. And that shows also a lot about your mindset, that you are a person that is not giving up easily, and always keeps going. Where did you think you got this mindset or strength from, like you said, how you grew up, or I mean, there's clear like an entrepreneur in you, like you always keep going and not settling, so doing more things, and like where's your drive coming from? What would you say?
I think what I chose to do with psychology, and also going to university, it's an offshoot of poverty. When you grew up and then you realize that you're actually missing a lot of financial things, that becomes a motivator. And also I'm very grateful for my parents, because in spite of their humble backgrounds, they instilled in me the value of education. So my parents were farmers in the Philippines. They obviously they don't own their lands. So my mom was a pineapple picker, a fruit picker, and then my dad was a rice farmer. So it's quite a tough life. And so when they already have their children, there's 3 of us, they made it a point that all of us go to university. And I'm quite grateful for my parents, because they they really invested a lot on us going to university. So I felt that it would be a waste of the sacrifices if we don't, kind of make something out of all the sacrifices that they've done.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the greatest motivator, the greatest drive to, to do whatever we can just to kind of pay them back for all their sacrifices.
Yeah. So I guess your parents are very proud of you today. Where are you now?
They're all proud of all their children. That's how I would put it. Because all of us have been to university, and my, all of us, we pretty much ended with a job that we'd like to do, and I think for that they're proud of us. Yeah.
Nice. What are you most passionate actually? So you're doing a lot of things. You're doing your PhD, you mentioned. I think this is a lot of things you juggle around right now. So what are you most passionate, also topic-wise right now?
Okay. But what I'm most passionate about is telling people the importance of resilience. And I think it's a very important skill that we need to cultivate. And so that served as the kind of impetus of my research project. I'm trying to develop a resilience tool that can help young people realize that they actually have resilience, and it's a very useful skill that they can use with any aspects of their lives. That's what I'm most passionate about. And I think if it's not for resilience, because of what I've learned from my parents and from my teachers, I believe I would still be living in the slum. And it's a very resilience is a very interesting aspect of human personality. We think that we're born with it, but we're actually not born with it. It's actually something that we get from our support system, mainly, from, like in my case, from my parents and from my teachers. And also you could also get it from resilience intervention tools. And I think if we give young people more resilience intervention, then they could also benefit from resilience. And so that's what I'm trying to develop with my PhD research project.
That sounds amazing. How is your view on the younger generation, especially with social media, regarding to resilience? Like,
I think I could be quite political about this.
Feel free.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who say that today's Generation Z, I think that's what they call themselves, is kind of woke, I think I've also gone through that phase. I'm 40 now, and I remember when I was 20, I think there's also things that I would love to be an activist. But I think that today's generation, the activism has swung too far. There's also almost an element of overcorrection, that they love to correct everything. And of course, that's impossible. We cannot achieve utopia. That's what I think of today's generation. They're very creative, and partly because of the availability of resources. I was a child of the 80s, and back in the day, it was a very simple childhood. There's no internet, there's not even electricity. Growing up, so you have to be kind of just play with simple stuff. But today's generation, they have more resources.
Yeah.
And of course, if you have more resources, that would enable you to do lots of things. That's what I think about young people today.
I'm curious about, can you tell us a little bit more about your research? I really find it interesting about, are there implications that people nowadays, for example, less resilient when they're young compared to, I don't know, 10 years or 20 years ago, or where do you look at, and what are your findings so far?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Bijan. Actually, when we talk about resilience, especially in public discourse such as this, it's quite straightforward what we mean by resilience, and perhaps one of the most common metaphors that we attribute to it is bouncing back. We know what resilience is. It's being gritty, it's being able to bounce back. But when you go to a more scholarly discussion of resilience, it's quite interesting that actually resilience researchers themselves do not agree what resilience is. And because of that lack of consensus as to what resilience is, there's actually no literature that would be able to tell you whether today's generation is less resilient than the younger than the older generation, because we seem to have different understanding of what resilience is, at least from a more academic standpoint.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, what I've done with my research project is I interviewed 15 young people in Southeast Asia, and I asked them what they think about resilience. And I remember asking them, do you think your generation is less resilient than the previous generation? And there's an overwhelming response that actually today's generation are less resilient. And the reason for that is young people think that their parents had a lot of things to do in spite of the lack of resources, whereas the young people today, they have more resources, and still they tend to be they tend to be less resilient. I don't know how to phrase it more sensibly, but I think part of it is that we have evolved as a society. We tend to talk more about, let's say, mental health issues. And I'm not saying that to talk about your mental health issues is a sign of weakness, because certainly it's not. But back in the day, let's say 10, 20 years ago, that was not the case. And so we think that if people keep it to themselves what they're going through, they're resilient. And so yeah, we just have different idea what it is to be resilient for every generation. I can't really cite a specific study to address that, but personally I would say probably the older generation, they would be far more resilient, because just to say, for instance, people who have experienced the war, First World War and Second World War, I don't think I would be able to, I would be able to manage that. So I have high respect for people who have gone through the war, because I was talking to my husband about this, and he was asking me, what if there is a war in Britain? What will you do? And I know this is not a nice thing to say, but I told my husband I'll probably fly back to Philippines, because I'm not prepared to fight for the war.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, like, I have high respect for people who have the courage and the resilience to fight during the war. And for that reason alone, I would describe them as more resilient than my generation.
Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on this. It's very, very interesting. I would like to come back a little bit to the internet. So we spoke a little bit about social media. So obviously the things changed a bit since the 80s and 90s. Also the area of blogging changed a bit. So how I think people their attention span is way lower than a couple of years ago. So how do you see the evolving of blogging and the internet? So I'm curious about your perspective because you have such a long history in it and you're following it such a long time. So yeah.
Well, Dijon, that is really an interesting question because there's definitely a number of studies that have shown that because of social media consumption, people's attention span over the years has decreased. But there's also research that has shown that that is actually not the case. But from a content creator standpoint, I would say that it has become more competitive. It's like we're competing for for views and for just basically people consuming our contents, because I have my YouTube channel and I find it quite difficult to compete with other channels. I feel that there's more people doing it better than I do, and also I have a website, SiteBridge, and I feel that I just need to put more content so I get the same level of traffic or get more traffic even. So I think that there would be an increasing competition. I think that would be the trend. I think I'm just lucky because I started when there were less competition. And I remember I was a guest on a YouTube podcast, and they said, what's the success of my YouTube channel? And I told them I'm not really successful. I'm not Joe Rogan. But I think I just benefited that when I launched my YouTube channel, at least in the UK, there's hardly anyone doing what I'm doing. And also when I launched SiteBridge in 2014, there's hardly anyone doing what I'm doing. So I just benefited from that. It was more of luck than anything else. And so I think if you're going to create content, your own platform right now, or probably in 10 years time, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So you have to offer more. And I don't think personally I could do that, because I'm not as creative as the younger generation.
I like your content. I watched a couple of your interviews and I really like it.
Thank you.
Because you really bring in really people with a deep knowledge from psychology, with a psychological background, really professionals. And I got a lot of, I just watched a couple of them and I got a lot of value out of it. So I think, yeah, even if maybe some are better in making it pretty with like a nice thumbnail or whatever, or better headlines. But I think at the end of the day, value for the listener is most important. And I think you're doing really good on this front.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you see that do you think in 5 or 10 years people still reading, or they just watch videos anymore? So this is a question I have for myself. Like sometimes I think maybe working on the blog is kind of outdated because more and more goes to video content. Do you have an opinion about that, or?
I think people will still read blogs, and I think that's where understanding your demographic, looking at your analytics comes in. Like if you're creating a blog, you have to understand how much time people are actually looking at your website, because if you think that they're not actually reading the text, then I think it would make sense that you embed videos. And actually that's what I'm doing. I'm aware that some people don't really read what I'm publishing on SiteBridge word for word, and so I just put some videos, because like when you Google something and then you end up on a specific website, you don't really read it word for word. You just kind of skim it and looking for your answer. And I think that's how people also consume SiteBridge, and I'm not going to deny it. But there are interesting websites like The Conversation, like Psyche, they also publish psychology related websites, and they have long form essays, and 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 I think they are far more successful than PsychRich, by the way, because I think they have over 1 million views. And so I think the art of reading, the appreciation for written words is not dying. It's still popular. The fact that you have websites such as Psyche that have, you know, like 3,000 word articles, and if you look up how much traffic and how much time the audience is spending on the website, it's quite impressive. You know, because there's a website called similarweb.com, and if you put the URL of that website, you have kind of idea how much, you know, how their audience are visiting their website, and they have a good, you know, screen time. So I think, yeah, there's still a market for that. But as to how I'm managing PsychRich, that's not my kind of style. So I don't really publish long form essays. I do publish, but probably just less than 1%. My kind of article is really more straightforward. They're just around 500 to 700 words. So it's not meant for long form reading. It's just something that you can you do for quick reading, looking for some, you know, materials in psychology.
Yeah, amazing. Would you do something different if you would start from scratch today?
Definitely. I wouldn't name PsychRich because, yeah, for anyone who's listening, because I think if you create a psychology related platform, it's kind of cliche to start with psych, you know, and there's so many websites that starts with psych, like PsychPulse or Psych News Daily. So if I have to start again just to kind of make my website unique, I would have renamed PsychRich differently. Yeah, but you know, because PsychRich has been 10 years now, it's kind of challenging to rename it. So I wouldn't rename it. I'm stuck with it. But honestly, I don't like the name.
I think there are worse things than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. What would you say, what were your biggest findings or learnings from your life? You're looking back, what was the most?
Oh, yeah, you asked some tough questions, Vishen.
Or another question, maybe it ties into this one. Like, if you could meet your, I don't know, 10-year-old self, what would you give him for advice? What would you tell him? Like,
I think,
your younger self.
yeah, I think just try to be more grounded. Because I think people tend to overestimate how much they've done and what's their role in, you know, in the larger society. And I think that would be my advice to my younger self, and perhaps to anyone who's watching. um I don't mean to sound disrespectful of what people are doing and what they choose to do, but you know, like, say for instance, in people might not appreciate what I'm going to say, but let's say in academia, you know, like you're a famous researcher, but I think just try to have a bit of humility that actually in the bigger world nobody knows you, and in the bigger, wider world nobody cares what you do. So just have a bit of humility. And I'm not saying that to discredit other people's work, but I've come across with people, not just in academia, but in other sectors, that they think they're too important. And it's just like, you're not a household name. Like, nobody has heard you. And I always try to remind myself of that, you know, like, outside of psychology, outside of blogging, no one has heard of me. I'm a nobody. I'm just a brick in the wall. So I shouldn't act like I'm too important. Yeah, I think that's that's what I would tell myself, that my younger self, no matter how much you've accomplished, do not overestimate your value.
It's very, yeah, I deeply resonate with it. But at the same time, I want to say, but it's also amazing what you accomplished. So also see the other side. But I totally agree with you that, yeah, it's definitely not harming if we all stay humble and kind. And yeah. How did you, so from my reading, as I went through your page, I think these days there's always a little bit, I found it on my side with developing my blog, a discrepancy of what you want to write about and what maybe people searching for, and what topics having high search volume to get more attention. And I clearly see that you stick to your values and your beliefs and your topics. That's is kind of a line through all the things I saw from you, and I really admire that. So don't don't just follow the money, follow more your purpose. That is what I clearly can see on your blog and what you're publishing. So how do you manage this to not get too much compromised, to follow the money side too much and maybe compromise the quality of your topics, or don't stay too focused on psychology topics? So how do you navigate this, and how do you manage to...
Yes, so Bijan, we just stick to actually what we are designed to publish. So we stick with psychology, mental health, and wellness. You're right that there are far more things that would give us traffic, and of course traffic translates to money. Well, you don't even have to check it, but the most visited websites are actually porn sites. Yeah, so if you want to make money, publish something related to sex. But we have to balance it, because PsychRich is a company, so we've got operating expenses. Running a website is not cheap, and then I also have some staff that I need to pay. Well, we are a small team, but I still pay my staff, and some of people who write for PsychRich, they're regular contributors, and my regular contributors, they get paid. So I have to balance that. And so there's a bit of strategy involved. Yeah, we have to write what we are designed to write, like psychology, but we also have to be strategic. And how do we become strategic? We try to link what we're publishing with current events. Yeah, because if you link what you're publishing with current events, then you can be quite confident that people would be looking it up on Google, and so that will give you a bit of traffic. So yeah, you can be true to your value, but in a way you could also be a bit strategic. And there's also a lot of things that you can do, like SEO. There's a reason why your URL is designed that way, and your title is designed that way. And I don't see that as kind of compromising value, but you're just trying to optimize your content. Because, well, there are two reasons why you're actually creating content. First is that you're passionate about it, and probably you don't need money. It's just a side hustle. But for people who choose to be a full-time blogger like myself, it's a passion, but it's also something that pays our bills. So we have to be strategic in making our contents more accessible. But like what you've said, you don't have to follow money all of the time, because when you just publish contents consistently, like in psychology or mental health, people will soon become familiar of your platform. And so that would help with your traffic.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's definitely encouraging and inspiring to see people like you that put the values over the money, like that the purpose is more important than just money. And you see in today's world, I think, a lot of opposite examples where they do the opposite, try to, yeah, for a short, big amount of money, they like dilute their topics, and yeah, that's really really cool. What can we do as content creators when we come back to the topic of resilience and helping young people getting more resilient? Is there anything, I'm not sure if there's an answer to this question, but I think if you're the right person to ask this, is there anything we can do to, yeah, to help younger people being more resilient?
I think we just need to show people who have displayed resilience, and by doing that, we're creating a pool of role models for young people. I particularly like Angela Duckworth. She's done a lot of talk and done a lot of research about grit. If you for anyone who's watching this, check out her TED talk on YouTube about grit. And I think we need to have more conversations about that, especially for young people. That sometimes, you know, it's kind of tempting to blame your experience and your society, but we have to teach young people about the value of ownership. You mean, I mean, I could have played the race card, I could play the, you know, like colonization and all of that, but what I've learned from my parents is that you take ownership, you know. So just trying to link it with your question, I think if we, you know, create more contents about resilience, about grit, and a sense of ownership, I think that would, you know, kind of encourage young people to do more. That you don't have to. I understand that there are genuine victims, but in my case, I've never seen myself as a victim, and I wish that young people, before they see themselves as a victim, I think they would kind of, you know, consider having ownership of their life. And as the content creator, that's what I would love to share with them. And that's actually what I'm trying to develop with my PhD project. I'm trying to develop a blood-based resilience intervention to make people realize that, you know, that there are different pathways to be more resilient, and perhaps blogging is one of those pathways.
That's really nice. So young people, I try to translate here, you are responsible and you can switch off your phone, go out in nature, enjoy something else than your phone for a while, something like this. So I think we
Yeah,
all
you said it better than me, Bijan.
No, it's just, yeah, it's very, very nice approach to, this also resonates with my path. I always felt, there are people they're blaming others, but there are people they also taking responsibility, and I was also in this camp. I would say I always take high responsibility for everything I do, and I think it's a very nice, yeah, nice summary of what people can do to be more resilient. Amazing. Do you have any other thoughts, anything which is close to your heart, what you would like to share with the world?
No, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your channel and to talk about PsychReg and also about my research interests. So thank you for giving me the space. and I look forward to returning the favor. Yeah, so soon we will switch the table, and I'll be interviewing you for the RH show. So I look forward to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being really an amazing role model.
Thank you.
I think you are living very humble and very kind, and yeah, you're just a very humble, kind person, and I think you're living the right values, and that's really amazing. And additionally, you show your failures, you show you're not normal human being. Like, I think this is what the world needs more compared to this. I don't want to frame it too negative, but this Instagram perfectionism, what young people maybe often see outside of yeah, in this realm. So thank you so much for inspiring us all with your very nice, kind art, kind way of being. And I'm looking forward to being your show as well.
Well, lovely to chat with you, Beechen.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you, and see you next time. Bye-bye, Dennis. Thank you so much for sticking so long with me here in the interview. I'm pretty sure you're also inspired by the story of Dennis. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up, a late thumbs up at this point, but it supports my channel anyway. And check out my course about personal transformation. I show you how to use the power of your subconscious to transform your life. I put the coupon code in the description below, so you get a discount for a limited time. Thank you so much for being with me here, and see you in my next videos. Bye-bye.